Hi, I'm Peter Kalmstrom of kalmstrom.com Business Solutions. In this demonstration, I will show you how to install Pivot Explorer for SharePoint using PowerShell. If you don't know how to work with PowerShell, then I would recommend you take my free online course here, 29 different articles and online demos about that. So this demo kind of takes that knowledge for granted, how to work with PowerShell and SharePoint together. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to use that knowledge to install Pivot Explorer for SharePoint in two different sites, this PE Demo 5 and the PE German 1 here. We'll start by going through the zip file that you downloaded from the kalmstrom.com website, and then you extract that. And that zip file contains three files. It's the JavaScript file that contains the main functionality, the Pivot Explorer ASPX, which is the content that script runs in, and also this installer script. And that's what we're going to be using now. So first of all, we're going to open that with Visual Studio Code. So that's also part of the prerequisites for this demo, that you need to have Visual Studio Code installed and also PowerShell 7 installed if you want to install it on SharePoint Online, which we're doing in this demo. If you want to do it on premises, then it's PowerShell 5 and integrated scripting environment. But now we're doing it for online. So this is the script, and I'm going to go through the script and make the edits necessary. If you're going against online, as we're doing in this demo, then you need to have your client ID set up. And here's an article on how to do that, apart from my own demonstrations, of course. So that's already done. And then you need to actually add the sites there. So let's do that part. I'm just going to put these side by side here now. There, this is the one we're going to be using with. So this is PE Demo 5, which I'm working on now. And let me just copy this entire row, do the same thing again, but now with the German side there, copy that. So those are the two sites that we're going to be working with and installing Pivot Explorer for SharePoint on. All right, so let's do that. And of course, to run the script, we need to actually trust the script, otherwise it won't work. So there we go. Now, those are the modifications that you need to make above these lines here. So make sure that you're using the right version of SharePoint online, which we're doing in this demo, have the client ID set up, and add the specific sites. Then you can just run the script. But before that, I'm going to show you what it does. First of all, there is some utility code here that you might want to use for registering an application, an Entra application, for setting the execution policy, for actually trusting the PS gallery, stuff like that. And also for setting the security properly for installing PnP. This is, utility things that commented out might be needed, and this one is usually needed. So that's why we have them there. Then I have some initiation of variables here, and just checking that we don't have any errors running, and this is also error handling, making sure that we actually stop if we have an error. And we have a function here that checks if a module is installed or not on the computer. If it's not installed, then it will try to install it. And if it is installed, then it will integrate it or import it into this running PowerShell here. Then we have the logging on part of the script here. And as you see, there's an online version and a on-premises version of that online procedure there. And this is using interactive on the online version, and also on the online version, we're enabling scripting on these sites. All right, because that's necessary, of course. Then we have the command UIDef that we're going to be installing. So this is actually adding a button to the ribbon in lists, and that is in turn calling the Pivot Explorer with the list ID that we want to have a report on. And then we loop through the sites, connect to them, make sure that we have an assets library there, and then we're adding these two files, the pe.js and the pivotexplorer.aspx. And then we're adding the custom action, and that's it. That's the script. All right, so now we've gone through it, so let's run it. And as you see, I'm getting a log on here and opening another browser and just making the interactive login. Great, so that's done. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that either. So let's get back here. So now you see it's enabling custom scripting on these sites. and that's going to stick for 24 hours. Then it's going to go back to prohibited again, but Pivot Explorer will continue to work. And then we're adding the files to each of the sites, adding the custom action, and then we're done with that URL, and then it's going on with the German one. But now we can actually go ahead and test it. And here we see what's happened. We can maximize that, and then we go into the site contents and see that it's added those files into site assets. Yes, it has indeed. You can go back to site contents, add a list there, and let's just do a departments list. Add a column for how many employees there are. That would be a number, no decimal places, and so on. So then we edit that in grid view. All right, then we have some data to work with, and there you see the button is there also to do a graph and a pivot on that data. So let's see that, how that worked. Now it's creating the PE reports list there in the background, and then it's loading that data, and there we go, there is our data. So that's it. Then we have the installation and the script is done. Let's just check that it's working in the German side also. There it is. All right. Thank you for watching this demo.